Welcome back, everybody. In our next video in the MPLS Layer 3 VPN section, we're going to be taking a look at our next topic, which is going to be running RIPng as our PE2C routing protocol. Now, iOS XR does not support this capability. There is no IPv6 capability for RIP inside of XR, so we're going to be forced to do just an iOS only configuration. So we're going to have CSR1 peer with R13 via RIP, and then have CSR6 and R15 peer via RIP, propagate the routes to the redistribution like we did in the IPv4 section, except for we're going to be propagating IPv6 routes. That's pretty much going to be the extent of what we do in this video, and then we'll go through and verify the configurations as we go along. So let's go ahead and dive into the config and take a look at what we're going to be doing. So we're going to go ahead and get started with this. Since I'm on 13, we might as well go ahead and get this party started. I'm going to actually go on 13, and I'm going to say no router BGP10 and just take the peering down. So we don't really need to worry about that too much. So I'm just going to go ahead and start off. There's a couple of commands that we need to be aware of in order for this to work. And it's kind of, in this particular case here, we're not too worried about it on the P or CE routers, but it will be something we have to focus on on the PE routers, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go underneath interface gig 0/0, and I'm going to type in IPv6 RIP, and then we have to give the process a name. So we'll go ahead and type in RIPng and specify the enable command and hit the enter key. Then we're going to type in interface loopback 0, type in the same command. Pretty straightforward stuff. Then we're going to go to our CSR1. We're going to go to global config. We're going to type in interface gig 3, and we're going to type in IPv6 RIPng enable. And you might say, well, why is the command not supported? Let me just double check my config, my syntax. IPv6 RIP. Sorry, my fault. IPv6 RIP, and then RIPng enable. Okay, so I waited for this to happen. So it says RIPng, no global VRF mode has been enabled. What the heck does that mean? Well, what that means is I actually have to enable VRF aware RIP in for IPv6 inside of the global globally. So it's IPv6 RIP VRF mode enable. That's the syntax. It's not a very obvious command, but it's there. We need to type it in. We'll go back to interface gig 3 and type in IPv6 RIPng enable, and there it goes. So now we do show IPv6 route VRF-C1. We are learning the 10.1:13 or 10:1:13 route from gig 3, right? Which is what we'd expect to see. So now I'm going to go do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to go to R15, go to global config, interface gig 0/0, IPv6 RIPng enable, interface loopback 0, same thing. Now go to CSR6, IPv6 RIP VRF mode enable, interface gig 3, IPv6 RIPng enable, and there we have it. So now do show IPv6 route VRF-C1. We're going to learn a RIP route here momentarily. Well, actually, I have to go to R15 and type in no router BGP15. Take the peering down, and then go back over to CSR6, hit the up arrow, and now we're learning the 15 route through RIP, which is what we want. But notice we're not learning the 13 route. That's okay. So now I'm going to type in router, or I have to go to IPv6 RIP. I'm sorry, router RIP, and then it's going to be RIPng. And I have to specify the address family of IPv6, and the VRF is going to be C1. And underneath here, I type in redistribute BGP 100 and then I specify the metric of, we'll say, in this case here, we'll say 3. Okay. And then we're going to go to router BGP 100, address family IPv6 unicast VRF C1, and we're going to type in redistribute RIP and then RIPng, and we can specify other values. I'm going to add the include connected command, and the reason why I'm going to include that is because we need to allow the locally connected route to get advertised into RIP so that BGP can propagate it to allow the remote connectivity to the connected link. If we don't, then we'll have a problem with reachability. Control plane will propagate, but data plane won't be working because the include connected command isn't applied. So we'll type in include connected and go from there. So now if I go over to CSR1 and do show BGP VPN v6 unicast all, I will now see the 15 route show up in the routing table as well as the 101.6:15. If I was to go to CSR6 and say no redistribute here and do show run section BGP and not have it advertised, what will end up happening is on CSR1 is that route will go away. The route will get propagated, but we won't actually have reachability, and we'll go ahead and test that real quick. So on CSR1, do the same thing. We'll type in IPv6 RIP, IPv6 router RIP, RIPng, address family IPv6 VRF C1, redistribute BGP 100, metric of 3, and then router BGP 100, address family IPv6 unicast VRF C1, redistribute RIPng, and hit the enter key. Go over to CSR6, do show BGP VPN v6 unicast all. We're learning the 13 prefix, right? Let's go to R15. Do show IPv6 route. We're learning the 14 prefix or the 13 prefix. Now if we jump out of global config and do a trace route, IPv6 to 10:1:13:13 from 10:1:15:15. Yes, we're going to have a problem. So give that a minute to flow through. Oh, it does go all the way through. Okay, I've had problems in the past where it doesn't go through, and I'm like, well, what the heck? So normally I do the include connected command just because, and it's pretty much foolproof. Here, technically we don't need it, but most of the times I include it just to be safe. So let's go take a look at CSR6, for example, and do show IPv6 route VRF C1. We are learning the 10:1:15 route via this next hop. Because it's link local and it's the R15 route or address being propagated, it knows how to reach it. So it's not a lost cause, but it's important to remember why we're doing what we're doing. So there could be the potential for problems with include connected. Like I said, I usually include it because other solutions that I've done in the past, they've needed it. So it's really up to you to determine whether or not you need it or not. Normally I just include it for the safety of making sure everything works. But just to be clear, we're not doing this here. Show run section BGP. Include connected is not added right here between or after the RIPng command, and it's not added here either. So we're not doing include connected. We technically don't need it, but more or less I've used it in the past to fix issues and stuff like that. So take it for what it is, and that's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and We've validated the reachability, so we know everything is going to work in that regard. So let's just go back to, let me take a look at XRV10 real quick. Show BGP VPN v6 unicast. We are learning the prefixes from their appropriate neighbors, and everything is good to go. With that being said, everybody, thanks so much for stopping by and hanging out with me in this video. Until next time, guys, take it easy.